Welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast. Nick, welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast. How are we doing?
Good, mate. Lovely to see you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's been a long time coming. This one, a long
Mate,
time coming.
It has. I've been pestering you. You've been pestering me, and I'm glad we finally found time in the calendar to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, a meeting of stars, an alignment of stars.
Yeah,
Eh?
100%, 100%. We're on opposite sides of the planet, mate. So it's going to happen eventually.
That is very true. That is very true. I mean, it was either this or we do it in person. And I think, yeah, the flight to your neck of the woods felt like a long flight and vice versa,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So Nick, when I get people on a podcast, I ask them to kind of come up with a log line, a sentence, what summarizes them. So I think my last one was like a creative, curious chimp. What would your log line be?
This is a bit pretentious perhaps, but I'll give it a crack. The Indiana Jones of learning, design, and strategy.
Learning design strategy. Okay, nice. We will come back to that one in just a sec.
Yeah.
So first thing I want you to do is I want you to pick a number between 1 and let's go with 1 and 12 if we can.
1 and 12. All right, let's go 9. Let's go
Number 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you this question now. I don't want the answer just yet, but we will come back to it. So the question you picked, question number 9, is: have you done anything lately worth remembering? Okay, so we will come back to that one in just a sec. But yeah, I guess Nick, we've talked for a few years now, for a good few years. In fact, I think we had a really good conversation during COVID times as well. If I remember rightly.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
See, that's the impact. I can clearly still remember that. But I guess for some of my listeners, they may not have come across you. So maybe walk us through kind of who is Nick and a bit of a career walkthrough maybe.
Yeah, sure thing, man. So Nick's my name. Most people call me Petchy. That's just kind of my sort of go-to name. I've been in design about 20. I need to go and check my LinkedIn, but around about 20 or so years. I started out actually as a bookmaker, and then I got out of university, and the next day our entire print industry just kind of collapsed. So I went straight back in the door of the university, and kind of really cut my teeth in animation, web design. This is back sort of pre-Flash 3.0 days, right? From there, I felt like I kind of graduated into feature film and visual effects. So I did a good stint in the industry as a sort of a motion graphic artist, as a sort of generalist kind of graphic designer. I kind of really wanted to get more into the technical craft. So I went and did that, studied in London, and then kind of worked sort of around the world for a good number of years on different feature films and animations and alike. At some point, I kind of realized that whole industry is basically modern slavery.
Okay.
And back in when I was more of a motion graphic artist and stuff, I was lucky enough to do an onboarding piece for a couple of companies like T2 Denim and G Star Denim and T2, and it got me thinking about this learning thing really. And I was like, that's kind of cool. It's like science, but also art potentially. So kind of went back to school and kind of learnt the science around learning and really fell in love with it. And, I was a bit hard pressed at the time. I had a Weta contract in one hand and I had another contract to take a very low paying e-learning generalist job. And I made the decision, it was a really tough decision. And, I did it. And it was one of the better things I think I've actually ever done, because the truth be told, the realities of the job are kind of everything. And I think from there, I just kind of worked my way up from being a bit of a generalist, kind of, I can build digital stuff and it looks pretty good and do technical interaction stuff. And starting to get into instructional design and like, okay, yeah, I can do this, I can write, I can do analysis, I can do this stuff. And then it just sort of really took off, and I started to turn really, really academic. And somewhere in there, I actually discovered design, which is, I thought, very interesting. I've been in design a long time, doing design at a graphic level, but then I really started to discover design at a systems, at a service level, at a sort of a
Mm,
product level. And I really started to graduate, in a sense, out of just working at a graphic level of design, kind of crawled my way into product, and sort of then really started to lean towards more experience, more service, more
mm,
interaction. And I think I'm still going. I'm actually finding myself more heading towards the more systems type territory now.
yeah,
And sort of, blending it all to kind of all together as I sort of go as a practice and whatnot. So that's kind of my short, career history. I call it climbing out of the four orders of design, just over the many years. Um, but yeah, my current role anyway is I'm at Deloitte as a sort of a senior specialist lead and head of learning innovation. I've always worked for the small, bespoke, handmade type studios because I really
mm,
believe in that level of work. But we got acquired some 13 months ago now, so I'm sort of going through a whole other experience of going through Deloitte, which I'm actually really loving, to be honest. It's pretty fantastic there. So yeah,
yeah.
it's been a bit of a nutshell, mate.
This is good. This is good, and there's so much to kind of needle into on there. I mean,
Mm,
there's the whole kind of experience of acquisition. When you've worked for the smaller part, you get brought into a bigger beast, and the I felt it before where there's just even at a language level, there's a friction, and so, but we can probably needle into that in a bit. But I want to go right back to maybe your childhood first. Um,
mm,
when you
okay.
was when you was younger,
Yeah,
wee baby Nick.
yeah,
And if I was to go and ask in the past three of your friends, what's Nick gonna be when he grows up?
yeah.
What
Interesting.
would they have said?
Yeah, I had a very strange upbringing, really out there. So I was born on the top of a mountain, then moved to the beach and grew up in an aquarium. Yeah,
Okay, we
yeah.
we clearly need to needle into that one. Explain.
Yeah, well, back in I guess the 1987 ish type of era. The cool thing to do was to buy or kind of lease a really cool kind of restaurant or location, and that was like innovation back then. And that's kind of what my parents did. So they kind of moved us to the beach and leased the kind of the local aquarium there. And so I kind of grew up in this kind of half industrial context of we work for a living slash by the way, we have an aquarium. So yeah, so I grew up sort of doing seal shows and had like a couple of pet octopuses and then, about 80 fish in a tank. And I'd be kind of out there catching sea life and whatnot. Yeah. And then that was kind of my earlier sort of years. And I think as I sort of started to grow a little bit, I did get into design and music at a very early age, but I do remember a school teacher actually who was a friend, and she said I was going to be a physicist because I was obsessed with like science and photosynthesis. I was sort of like really into that. It was very like I think like grade 4. I was kind of obsessed with that kind of stuff and a lot of nature. So I think people would say scientist slash kind of some type of kind of creative. I've never ever been in a peg in a well, I've always been a peg in a square hole. I've always been a bit left of center or kind of a bit of a mix of methods and mix of sort of
Mm,
thinking, which I think links back to the aquarium somehow. But yeah,
yeah. Well, this was going to be my next question. I guess you're in learning innovation right now, and if we go right back to your childhood, the aquarium, like you mentioned, that was it. That was innovation back then. Do you think there's any traits of that kind of upbringing, what have probably made you who you are today? Of course, there's elements of the childhood which makes you who you are today, but is there anywhere you've kind of gone, oh, that's remained with me throughout my whole
yeah,
growth?
yeah. I think hopefully it's not too profound or anything, but I think nature
Mm,
ultimately. I've had a big life in nature because and there's a great saying. Don't ask me who by because I can't remember, but that there is no knowledge without nature, and for probably sounding like a hippie, I believe that you can go back to nature at any point in time to solve the world's problems.
Mm,
Whether you choose to look at things through like a systems and ecological lens, or whether you choose to look at things like biomimicry, where you're going to look at
mm,
nature to create strategy or novel ideas. I think there's something about nature that is so deep in everything. Every bit of knowledge we've ever made somehow has come from nature because well, it depends what you think the birth of the universe would be, I guess, and where we come from. But in my belief system, I believe we've grown and learned everything we know from nature, and it continues to kind of influence and kind of amaze us. And I sort of
mm,
bring that into my work a little bit. And I think there's a few things you do differently when you really respect nature. It's sort of observing the context in which you're working, or perhaps the multiple contexts in which you're sort of observing in like a problem space. I think you tend to think more holistically, more I guess more systems type
yeah.
thinking. You tend to look at the relationships between things. I tend to believe that learning has more to do with relationships than it does with content.
Mm.
Things of that nature, I think, have found their way into my deeper values and kind of who I am a bit. Yeah,
Biomimicry fascinates me.
yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, like even when you look at, the simple, and it's always the one what I think probably gets used is a bullet train. Like
Yeah,
there's just so many pieces of a bullet train what is pulled from biomimicry, from how it penetrates through the tunnels, from a kingfisher right away
yeah,
through to kind of the
yeah,
things on the train. Um, but I was at a conference. I was at an innovation conference last week, which
mm.
instantly dates this podcast. But last week, and there was an expert in there from biodiversity talking about actually, lots and lots of companies are investing in pensions, but actually, when you needle down into them pensions, they're all getting invested in tobacco companies and whatever
Yeah,
else. And she was talking around the kind of the impact this is having on kind of the world, and it was fascinating. And my instant brain went to, oh, cool. So as soon as we wipe out this, we wipe out the biomimicry, we wipe out history, we wipe out how we can learn from the world because there's so much we
yeah,
don't know around design. Um, but I guess kind of coming from there to um you mentioned right at the start that you was an Indiana Jones of design, that learning design and strategy.
yeah.
There's something about adventure. There's something around the child Nick, the innovation, the kind of like and in your tagline, there's the Indiana Jones the adventure. Walk me through that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right, actually. And there's a bit of my childhood in there. Quick bit on Indiana Jones and why Indiana Jones, alongside Jackie Chan, is my absolute idol. Because Jackie Chan does all his own stunts. That's another thing I quite like. But the thing I really liked about Indiana Jones was like if you looked at all the superheroes that you were modeling from when you were growing up and stuff. Indy's the only one who really doesn't care about a gun. Like he's not just like, he has a whip and a book, and
Mm,
I just think that is the coolest thing. And his mission or his purpose is this sort of like adventure of knowledge. And for me, that is just the coolest thing. It's the most radical thing that kind of comes to mind for me. Um, and so I think I think there's an aspect there for myself. So I'm pretty kind of dedicated to like my own learning. So I tend to actually book in and travel the world to go and do, learn new methods, go and do different workshops. I spend most of my annual leave, doing this and try to get as much time out of work as I can, sort of doing this stuff. So, this or last year and a bit alone, I've done Denmark, UK, alone just to go in really just the chase of knowledge and
mm.
practice. Um, And I really think it's important that you get out of your own environment to go and learn. It's just like I could stay here in Australia and I could go to all the different institutions and stuff, and it's just going to be same old, same old. You know what I mean? Yeah, you really got to get to a different geolocation where there's a different psychology going on, different world problems, different information, different people, different backgrounds to really learn something I think that is kind of really of value, you know? So yeah,
Yeah,
there's definitely some adventure, and I definitely tend to. I sort of found my home in more research focused work as opposed to being on the tools and developing, which is where I started from. And
yeah.
that whole thing's an adventure, and it's sometimes it's a horrible adventure, right? Some other
Mm.
times it's amazing, sometimes it's a bit of a mix of both. And I think I just sort of have the stomach for that, biting off the impossible brief, the undefined problem, whatever it is, and kind of going into that space and executing in that space, just really kind of lights my fire because it's got that adventure. Yeah.
Mm. There's something about the research, and I guess, yeah, in my book, The Insightful Innovator, I talk about the whole sense making and
Hmm.
the fact that a lot of time you are going into the unknown. There's the adventure of the unknown, and it seems like you really enjoy that. There's something around going out there and not knowing where it's going to go. It's like where
Yeah.
it's going to come from.
Yeah.
Um, and I will not sleep if I do not ask you this question. So I need to get this off. Um, Bookmaking. So we was chatting just before the podcast
Yeah.
and was talking our prized possessions are the books, the things what are on my shelf, what I've read, the ones what are still yet to be read.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't know about the bookmaking. Tell me a little bit about that. Like what?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I learned to use Photoshop. I think when I was really young, because my dad did one really good thing. Well, he did many good things. He's awesome, but he bought a computer when I was like about 7 or something, and just like let me use it as much as I could. And I started learning Photoshop, and I started getting really into print because print was a thing back then, right? The edge
Mm,
of creative innovation. Mobile phones were still crap back then. So like paper stock, different types of ink, different types of tricks with ink, topography, layout, design. And we grew up in the 90s, right, where dance music was just absolutely at its all-time peak. And so when you blend print, music, design together, you've got me, a 13 to 14-year old aspiring DJ as a teenager, just absolutely obsessed with this type of edgy design that was kind of happening back then. And that kind of really led me through to bookmaking, because there's something then more integral about bookmaking. So both the digital side, so pre-press, and how you go about actually designing print at a very disciplined kind of level. So we're
mm,
talking pickers, pikers, and points, as in like the very fine spacing between topography, through to the type of paper stock you're going to choose, to how it's bound, to obviously how it's all produced and how it feels and what it's like as an interactive experience. Um,
wow.
yeah, no wonder it died though. It's the industry was too effortful and too integral, I think, for today. If I'm being really honest, our experiences of, uh, I feel really cheapened in a sense. It's the kind of growth things kind of gotten in the way of the integrity of product now.
Mm,
At some levels, I feel, and I feel that books were just too, there's too much work that goes into them, I think, for the world
yeah.
today. It's partly why the print industry is kind of really struggling. I don't actually believe it's truly about sustainability or any of that particular front of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something around the books which was, when I think about the book, what I wrote, I had a contract from Colgan Page, and then I ended up declining that and deciding to go it alone because I wanted more flexibility in writing the book what I wanted to write, and actually it ends up being 3 books. And the first one is Insightful Innovator, and the second one will be The Experienced Engineer. And I remember the decision to make to go it alone wasn't based on the first book. It was based on what I want the second book to be. And the
Nice.
second book, I want it to be an experience in a book. There's no point talking about experience design if I'm
Yeah.
giving a typical reading book. And there's a couple of books which I've got here, which I'm like, how they have crafted this book is a
Yeah.
truly experience. But I've
Yeah.
got one here called The Ship of Theseus, I think Theseus,
Okay.
Theseus. Anyway,
Okay.
um, but it's basically the book is a book of three stories. So you've got the
Mm.
book, i.e., end to end, and
Yeah.
then it's like you've picked this book up and there's little scribbles in it, and
Nice.
it's like someone's then gone through the book and written another story on top of it, and then on
Ah,
top of
so it's
it,
like a
it's in this.
multi-layering
Yeah, it's so good,
genius.
and I'm just like,
Yeah.
how hard must have that been to create that book? But
Yeah.
it is a true experience in a book,
Yeah.
and I think you're right. I think there's something around the typical churn of a book and the easy how to mass produce it now, but then there's still something quite magical about the ones that have that extra value.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess I want to take you, seeing as we're talking about books, if you had to give a gift of a book
Yeah.
to five people, what's the one book you would give to them?
Oh, there's a few. I'll get disciplined. I'm just calculating a list. Um, you know what? There's a couple. There's two. Okay, I'll stick with two. I'll stick with two. One
Okay.
design based and one non-design based, perhaps. One of the ones I'll probably give them is Stealing Fire by, if I get the author's name right from memory, Stephen Kotler. Kotler,
Nice.
I believe. Yeah. And Melise Sanova actually recommended this book to me, and it changed the way in which I see the world, like so drastically that I had to sort of just pinch myself and make sure, okay. But it's fascinating. He gets right through probably what you could consider the origins of experience design in terms of
Mm,
neurophysiology, pharmacology, yeah, a whole heap of other stuff. He covers everything from um, Burning Man type experiences and how that's really a peak state. It's designed. The whole thing's really designed to be a peak state of kind of the human kind of conditioning and stuff. What happens when you go around the world swapping beer for data, and what type of data you actually get? There's
mm,
so much in that book. Even some kind of out there sort of thinking about perhaps what the governments might know about experience design and perhaps some of the things they might be employing, so
okay.
you need a little bit of pinch of conspiracy in there. So that's a really fantastic book to just give you a perspective on, I feel, where we are today
Mm,
and perhaps really what the future's about. And the future probably is more to do with neurophysiology of human beings as it is to do with digital technology.
mm,
And you can look at sort of pharmacology and how a lot of that works. A lot of experiences we might be having in the future, in the way in which they're designed, and experience might be more to do with our neurophysiology than it is to do with what we're sort of currently doing today.
mm.
So that's
Um,
that's one book. Um,
okay.
I think another book. Let me look at my bookshelf here just to make sure I've got the one kind of thing. Um, yeah, I think I might actually go with. Um, yeah, all right. Maybe the Convival Toolbox, which is um, by Liz Sanders, and it's all centered around her body of work in generative design. So generative design really being a mode of research that is focused on empowering people to be able to say, do, and make. And because what she recognizes that I think still a lot of people don't recognize is that we can communicate so much more not using words. So
Mm,
words are part of it, right? That's part of our kind of behavior. But at a deeper level, if you get a room of 20 people, tell them there's a no talking rule and give them some Play Doh and a single frame, the stuff that can come out of that is just incredible. So she's really pioneered a whole body of work around this generative design kind of movement and how to practice it. But that book, she gets it down to such a atomic level of what's happening with tactile, for example, a hard surface tactile like a Lego brick versus like something malleable like Play-Doh or something, and what the what the cognitive differences are, or the cognitive potential differences are. You know,
Interesting.
she's so into it. And the other thing that's very interesting about her, if you go and look at, say, the last, I don't know, 50, 60 years of research or the research landscape, and there's a lot of debate in that whole landscape about, you know, what research should be and what it shouldn't be. So you've got like your hardcore human factors folks who are like, you know, no, this is how it's done. It's done as a simulation in a lab. And like, you know, they're like an astronaut getting trained type approach. And that's a total gross generalization. I love human factors and human factors people, just for the record. But then right on the tip of the very cusp of innovation, you've got this tiny little splotch, which is generative research and design, and is pushing way out there. It's like the true innovative end of, I think, not just research, but like what I would probably call cognitive technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's well out there, and yeah, that would have to be a bit of a nerdy friend. But I've given it to, I gave it to my dad, who's a English teacher. He's still teaching today as well. After the whole aquarium thing, and yeah, he loved it because he saw a lot of what happens in a classroom in there, but not the pedagogy kind of nonsense. He's talking about like what happens to people, students, when they're kind of working through and they're all coming from different backgrounds and they're all at different levels and there's all this complexity going on. But what happens when you change the shape and the mode of like the mission you're giving them or the task you're kind of giving them as a sort of as a democracy for kind of learning. And it's yeah, it's an interesting piece, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So I was just thinking as we were chatting it, and I think so. I've been out of L&D, learning development, for 5 years now.
Congratulations, mate.
Yeah, recovering. And if I'm tongue in cheek, L&D is full of good people.
It is. Yeah.
But it kind of got me thinking. Actually, when we very first got speaking, it was while I was in L&D. So
Mm.
that's our relationship. Actually, is 5+ years. Um, but I guess there's something around connection. This, I guess, this is me. I'm thinking on the fly here, but
Mhm.
there's something around how we've still managed to stay connected while also being at opposite ends of the world and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I guess the reason why I'm thinking about this is when I think about connection and I think about design and I think about actually your whole your journey, I guess, to before we get into kind of work questions,
Mm.
who's been them threads who you've kind of valued staying connected to in your journey?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting one. So I think there's a theme there, and I think it's people who produce their own ideas, like
Mm,
ultimately through this. So I could sort of name some really key kind of standouts for me. I feel people obviously such as yourself, mate. I think we were chatting to I think about L&D Shakers earlier with people like Anna Maria. I think people like Melissa Novas, in a sense, has played an important role. I think in helping to provide thinking about what a designer is in the
mm,
world, and that's been an important kind of echoing kind of piece for me to deepen into as I deepen my sort of practice. Um, and there's not a lot of people, but I could probably count on maybe just on two hands. There's probably about 8 or 9 really, really kind of key people. Some I've never met. So,
interesting.
so one person that has been with me a very long time, who's I feel like is my best mate, is Donald Shun, who's a professor and kind of writer. And this guy is like just he's quite like, okay, so design is the experimentation within virtual worlds in order to make better judgments. Like that's a quote of his, right? Or it's not what road to build, it's where to place the road. That's the true problem. Because the road is the technical problem. We could solve that. We're not solving technical problems here. We're solving adaptive problems. So when you're talking about placing a road, that's like there's no degree for that. There's no specialist. There's no expert. There's only the problem, and so a designer is someone who works at that intersection, with others, obviously, to figure out where to place the road. So there's a number of people throughout my journey, but I really resonate with people who generate their own ideas and put them out there, because that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for. You're touching on the L&D industry, and I'm probably lifelong service to learning at some
Mm.
level, but I don't actually relate that much to the L&D industry at large at all, and I don't really prescribe to the practice and thinking that often is happening in that sector, and often what I'm sort of doing is addressing learning indirectly
Mm.
through, and probably one of the threads that holds us together, I think, isn't L&D, but design
Yeah.
and a practice of design. And Yeah, I think that kind of
Mm.
answer. Yeah, hopefully that kind of gets to that question, I feel.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
does. It really does, and I think you're right. Like, I don't see you as an L&D person. I see you
Yeah.
as someone who I can have really rich conversations with, someone who I can have depth in conversation around design, whether it be speculative,
Mm,
experience, system thinking, whatever.
mm,
The you mentioned earlier around the generalist,
mm.
but I think there's something around maybe not the generalist you are, but the generalist in your thinking of the fact of you connect the dots. There's something around that remixing and connecting of
Yeah.
ideas from outside of that space, what makes it valuable.
Yeah, I would call that, if I may, another pretentious term for
Yeah.
myself, but
No, go for it. Go for it.
transdisciplinary,
Mm. Yes,
Be-
exactly.
because
Yeah.
because it takes a lot of time to, I think, to earn a discipline.
Mm.
It takes about, I'm going to say, about 7 years, and even then, there's some of them. They're obviously all lifelong, but to say that you've got a discipline, you've got to have gone through the phase in life where it's like, all I want to be is this one thing, and then you do it for 7 years, and then you go, okay, no, I need to be something else,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
do that 5 or 6 times over, and I felt like I'd started out in some aspects of design, and I was like, all right, so I've got that sort of discipline set, and then I kind of got into learning. I did that for like 7 years. I was like, right, I've got that discipline set, and now I'm sort of continuing to work this like more systems and kind of research focused space, and that's sort of
Mm.
my emergent praxis, if you will. And I have these disciplines behind me that will be lifelong, because you've done the time, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think, to pick on the L&D industry again, because we love doing, I like doing that. But
Mm.
one of the big problems I see in the job postings is the role of L&D generalists.
Yeah.
You cannot create a product with a generalist. You need specialists. You need T-shaped roles. You need a graphic designer. You need a developer. You need a copywriter. You need some type of either learning designer or perhaps learning strategist.
Mm.
And it's no wonder learning is kind of where it's at, is at a general level, at a general mass level, because we've kind of been tumbling into these generalist roles. Like if you go to any other adjacent sector or something, and look at, I don't know, bookmaking or web design or whatever, you're going to be hard scratched to find true generalists in any of those true, I guess those crafts that actually have a budget. But
Mm. Mm.
they're always going to be multi-tiered with multiple specialists with deep expertise, and they come together and work at the cross section of the problem. Um,
Yeah.
I think learning needs a bit of that.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, and I think it's there's a language issue again around what L&D
Mm,
means now versus what L&D meant 10 years ago.
yeah,
Um, and I've been banging this drum for many years now, and I'm like, L&D, prove your worth. Like, you show me that if I don't take you out of business, that the
yeah,
business won't thrive.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not a tilt on L&D, because I do think L&D are needed in businesses, but I think the evolution of L&D is needed more so. The
Yeah.
L&D team has a unique opportunity from, in my mind, at the moment, where we can shift away from L&D and become the ultimate problem solving team, providing there's a capability, there's a mindset, there's a behavior piece, what needs to happen and then needs to change in order to do that.
Mm.
I help lots of clients, and after a time, it's like, okay, we're going to show you how to do proper sense making, which is audience immersion. Like, it's all the good stuff of kind of insight, immersion, digital diaries, everything. And I'm like, many companies don't do that. I'm like, well,
No.
how are you actually validating that the problem even exists?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, maybe it doesn't,
Yeah.
and I think there's just real value in, and this is probably me maturing in my opinion as well.
Mm.
There's value in keeping LD as long as the mindsets are there are to kind of continuously evolve.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, I don't mean evolve from we're going to do 2 hours, 3 hours e-learning to micro e-learning to micro content to this. I'm like, no, that's
It's just
the,
marketing.
yeah. What we need is we need something at a real core level and build from the foundations again.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and I sort of maybe to take and I really appreciate how you sense made, yeah, how you sense made that. And I think what we need is more people doing learning outside of L&D.
Mm,
So in a sense, we need people out there um, indirectly kind of doing learning, but nothing to do with the L&D sector. Because the L&D sector, I mean, fundamentally, for the most part, is really trapped inside of an industrial kind of system that's developed over a couple of hundred years, right? Which is the construct of education and training. Ironically, it's where about 10% of learning actually occurs, but ironically, 90% of the literature's there. I mean, that's sort of enough to tell you that something ain't quite right. And I think everyone knows it. The people in L&D are incredible. People are working day and night to try and shift things. But when you start seeing the marketing that's occurring and the lack of research, so we come up with sentiments like gamification and like micro learning to address symptoms of root causes. You know, micro learning's always existed. There's always been short learning.
mm, yeah.
Yeah. But I really feel it's kind of just around this idea of like that's how we're keeping ourselves busy. And for me, that's not enough because that's
Yeah.
not genuine. For me, it's not really genuine, authentic kind of progress in kind of what we really want to go for. So I feel more people need to be kind of just turning their focus out towards more broadly design and research as a practice, which I think the industry is missing as a core capability.
Mm,
And really start to work at the outer fringes of learning and what it can be. Um, the work I've kind of been doing in my thesis and a few other pieces is kind of looking at an idea that if you kind of look at the timeline of learning a bit, it's like 2.4 million years or so. But and we really go back to when we first started making tools, right? And then tools over time actually physically changed the shape and the structure and function of our brains. That can even be tracked with mobile phones today. It's had a significant sort of impact. Now they're starting to track that. But over time, we started to create these constructs. So that industrial era came, we kind of invented like education and training to kind of manage those things.
mm,
And then over time, it was sort of the midpoint, we started to get groovy with development, right? We sort of started to say, there's this kind of in between space where you can kind of develop yourself a bit, right? I believe there's a fourth field of learning because if education is field one, training's field two, and then development's the third field, I think there's a fourth field of learning, which is the learning of like living systems,
yeah.
which is really if you go and have a look at things, it starts to lead you back into social learning pretty quickly. And it starts to come up with a few arguments like that learning cannot actually occur outside of the context in which it kind of exists. So situated cognition. So the real place you're going to learn is like smack bang wherever the actual problem is that you're solving. Right, that's where you're actually going to learn. So if you start to think about learning as a systems point of view, and you start to think of it like rather than as a collection of learners and stuff, you start to think of it as perhaps a collection of actors in an
Mm,
ecosystem. You start
yeah,
to think about how does this environment create, you know, um, opportunities to collide with exposure and experience in a way that relates to their, inner needs as learners, and how do we design for that?
yeah,
And going back to the Indiana Jones theme a little bit, you know, there's a fascinating concept known as a border crosser, and it comes from I think Wenger's original social learning work. And the idea of a border crosser is someone who is leaving their domain of knownness, of expertise, of skill, to go and adventure and learn something new. So they're literally crossing out of their own border and into somebody else's border, which is the
yeah.
important bit. And it comes back to why learning is more about relationships than content. It's like if you wanted to go and learn how to do, I don't know, underwater basket weaving, right?
Sounds cool. Sounds cool.
I'm going to send you to someone who's been doing it for 35 years, right? And you're going to go spend time with them. That's you crossing the border, so to speak.
Yeah,
Um, that's the more the thing I'm kind of interested in, and kind of where I see the future of learning a bit is really taking on that systems, that service perspective. We've been designing a lot of solutions from that perspective, where we can meet clients for where they're at, and the impacts have been really significant in terms of what that's doing to the capacity building mechanism of that organization for change
yeah.
is just incredible. Yeah, that was a bit of a journey, man. But
No, that's good.
kind of does that sort of make a bit of a sense for you?
It does, and I guess there's kind of a couple of key points which I want to jump into that. For me,
Mm.
there's something around conformity. So I think
Hmm.
I want to kind of deal into the conformity, the border crossing, and just the conference space as well. Um, it's fascinating, right? We find ourselves, you know, one way or another as current or past L&Ders, but I don't think many people go in and go, "I'm going to be someone who's an L&D." They find their way in there,
Yeah.
and yet what that means is you find your way in there and you bring a unique set of skills which
Mhm.
aren't instantly related to L&D,
Mm.
but you come into L&D and you're like, oh, here's all the skills what I can bring. Here's
Yeah.
the newness,
Yeah.
the provocation. We're looking at things differently. But then as soon as we get into L&D, there's something around, but you've got to conform to the world
Yeah.
of L&D now. So then the reason what you came in for
Yeah.
versus when you're there
Mm.
is like you lose everything. And there's have you come across the idea of bullshit jobs? Have you come across this?
Oh yeah, I sort of get the general idea. It's not the reality. My VFX career was a bullshit job. The aspiration did not meet the reality of the job at
Yeah,
all in any way. Yeah, you're a cog in a machine.
yeah, exactly.
In a sense. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and like just to kind of I guess build out for the listeners, the idea of a bullshit job is you can take that person out, take that role, that bullshit job out, and nothing will happen. No change will happen. There's something around you remove a nurse
Okay.
and things fall over very quickly. You will remove a middle
Mm,
manager, maybe not so much.
I
And I'm not
understand.
saying L&D is like this idea of bullshit jobs, but I think the more we force people to conform to the world of what L&D is right now, we lose, I think, what will naturally make it progress. And
100%.
and it's
100%.
fascinating. This
It is.
linked me to the conference space, which was
Mhm, mhm.
I remember right at the start of my career, I went to a conference. Right at the start of my L&D career, I went to a conference, and one of these big conferences, and there's things up on the screen, and it's like, yeah, this is
Mm.
the future of blah blah blah. And then just before I left, which was 5 years ago, them same slides were showing up on the screen, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
that same experience. And
yes,
in Australia, which is the other side of the world. So if this was a study right now, we could say 100% of users, have experienced the same slides 5 years in a row around the world. Australia to the UK.
It's just it's surreal. It's surreal,
Yeah.
and there is something about conformity which I'm doing mental gymnastics on at the moment, just in my own mind
Mm,
of just in passive thinking. Usually when I'm in the bath, just thinking,
yeah.
but there's something around we value conformity when really we shouldn't value. You hear about these companies go, you can be yourself here.
Yeah.
And then you identify future talent because they bring something which is a gap or something
Yeah.
where we look at problems differently. We
Yeah.
bring them in and we go, yeah, we need all of that. We need you to be you and come into this business. And then when you get in there, you find actually no. The reality is keep that, but priority number one is conformity and fitting within this model, this system.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think you touched on a really important point, and there's actually something really dark that lurks in the world of learning. Really,
mm,
really dark. And I'm just kind of speculating here a little bit, right? But if you look at what training really is, right, and the main methods that have kind of been used to develop a lot of training, you can track those back to the Great War, right? It's how you run an army. Fundamentally, is you train them all to run the army. That's literally where ADDIE kind of really originated from, and so forth, right? But I think if you look at what training is, it's really authoritative knowledge and practice written by other. Right? That's
mm,
essentially what training is: authoritative knowledge and practice written by other. And you can take it and leave it and make it your own and all that kind of stuff and adapt it into your own practice. But a matured practice is very far away from training, because training is training. So starting there, and if you think about what training's function is inside of organizations, for the most part, you can probably do it through a lens of it's about the establishment and maintenance of existing rules, routines. So whether that is this is how we innovate, or whether this is how we stay safe, right? So both ends of the spectrum there, perhaps between full non-conformance focused compliance, right? For like, if we get audited, we covered. That's one spectrum of it, all the way up the other end to like design thinking training, right? Um, and I'll say it, training is potentially an anti-innovation mechanism for organizations. It's maintaining existing rules and routines, not breaking them. So I think deep down in the learning industry, the dark matter that's kind of in there that needs to be shifted over a period of probably 2 decades or so is around power, control, and probably like non-conformance. There's some
mm,
level of that. You see it in the school system, like if you're late or if you do an assessment different or you don't fit in, there's a non-conformance, there's a punishment there, right? And so on. And as Peter Senge says, school and work are exactly the same thing. It's from gold stars in kindergarten through to bonuses for project delivery in the workplace. They're literally the exact same construct in a sense, which is pretty profound stuff on his part. So I'll try and wrap this up,
no, no,
but, I,
this is good. Stick with it. Stick with
but
it.
yeah, but I think if we want the industry to change and we're looking at designers and yeah, the BS job type thing, right? So they're coming into the industry with big ambitions. The problem is we've got too many designers who are obsessed with the graphic level of
Yeah.
change. What we need is we need people who are willing to risk their lives and their careers to go and venture into the systems and service territory to change learning. Because
Yeah.
only then, if we can sort of get to a place of policy, of strategy, of infrastructure, of investment, can we really start to change the way in which learning's kind of done.
Mm.
Um, it's got to be up at that level. I think the change. I think when a lot of people are coming in the industry, they're like, I want to do learning different. In this module, it's gonna be an escape room, and it's like, it's still stuck in the construct of modules, how we measure learning, what we think learning is. Breaking it out of that whole kind of system that's in there. I think, yeah, we need more of these type strategy type people, research type people to really be looking at learning very, very differently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And you've hit something on the head for me. So a lot of time when I go working with clients, it's around innovation, right? Because my
Mhm.
background now is people slash employee experience and innovation. And one of the big call outs, one of the big things which I talk about is action over aesthetic.
Uh-huh.
And which is basically how you just nicely put it together. It's
Mhm.
exactly that. It's a thing of actually, the aesthetics of something come later on down the line.
Yeah.
Way, way, way down. There's no
Yeah.
point doing that right at the start. Like it's a waste of resource. It's a waste of actually making any form of action and impact. And I think it's an interesting one. I think you'd probably see this in any business or just any kind of function. L&D is full of really smart, really caring people.
Oh, yeah. The
And
best sometimes as well. That's the
yeah,
heartbreaking bit about it. Yeah.
yeah. And often you end up doing two things. You either stick with it until you retire and you build up this kind of not hatred, but this negative taste in your mouth to it, or
Yeah.
you decide to go, actually, I'm getting out of this space and
Yeah.
I'm going to go into another space where I can bring these different things. And innovation is a really interesting one. And again, it's something which I battle often, and it's people want innovation until you show them what innovation is, and then they
Yeah.
go, "Oh, we don't want innovation," and a lot of the time
Yeah,
it's
turn it off, turn it
it's
off.
scary. It's scary, and in times of
Yeah.
when resources really nice, you want innovation, and when resources really tight, you don't, and that's a completely bad model. The idea is you want innovation when money is tight because
Yeah.
that's and whether you go down an innovation of efficiency and effectiveness, or you go to the opportunity space and the white innovation. It's an
Mm.
interesting one, but again, language has been something what has constantly come up in all my podcasts at the moment, which is the word of innovation has this connotation depending on who you are and where you sit within the business.
Oh, 100%, mate. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole collective psychology that ships with this stuff based
Mm,
on what sector you're in, what lane you've got been. No one's told you that's your lane, but you've just kind of done that with your job description.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
I'm wondering, like, I've got a point of pondering, and
Go,
this is
go.
something I've been looking into. It's connected to this, but is innovation? Sorry, is learning design, or is design just learning? And let's just pair kind of design and innovation together for a second.
Mm,
Because one of the things I've sort of been thinking about a lot is, like, if you look at the process of design and research and innovation often is about the purest form of learning you're going to find out there. The most useful, the most tactile, the most pivotal, the most value to a business, the most value to an individual. Like the list goes on, right?
yeah.
And real world stimulus for learning is when something's undiscussable, untestable, unreadable,
Mm,
unfindable, whatever. All of the uns and all of the painful things is the best stimulus for real world kind of learning, right? At some level, not training, but learning, yeah, more broadly.
mm,
So it's something I've been sort of pondering about. And if you look at a lot of the great inventions, like I don't know, let's go with sticky notes. Total accident, you
yeah.
know. This glue didn't stick properly. Oh, hold on. Oh, this is pretty cool. I can stick it to a window and take it back off. It's not permanent. What? What's
Mm,
this? You know? Um, so I'm just kind of thinking about things in that space, a little bit. Because my thought is, friend, I don't think you'll ever escape learning. I think you're actually going to be more in learning now, perhaps, that you've left L&D and you're in innovation
mm,
than when you were in L&D. And that's, kind of how reality really is sometimes, right? It's
mm.
always a bit of a surprise like that. Um, eh,
Yeah, this is good. This is good. I think for me, there's learning as the title, and then learning as the trait.
yeah.
Um, and I think every great innovator, every great problem solver, every great designer,
Mm,
the beginner's mind, if that's what you want to call it, There's something
Yeah.
around the beginner's mind and a comfortable appetite for risk. And what I mean by that, when
Yeah.
you leave, when you go, you know what, I don't fit within this community anymore. And it's not
Yeah.
because I'm better than this community. It's just that I want to go this way with my thinking now, and it
Totally.
doesn't sit with that. Um, there's a risk, right? Because it's a bit like being shunned from a community. It's like, "Oh, you're not one
Yeah.
of us anymore."
Exile or you're a
Yeah,
Ronin, a
yeah,
rogue
exactly.
samurai. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. And but it's a really good point, and there's something which um, I want to needle us on, but it links us there really nicely. When we think about innovation,
Mm.
like I get two really, if you put it into a typical design thinking, which is the value of
Yeah.
design thinking, and where that goes next is another conversation. But
Mm.
there's two real key points which I really enjoy the most. I enjoy the kind of sense making element of it. So when I
Yeah.
think about sense making, I go the human, the system, the service.
Mm.
Um, what does that sense making look like from them kind of three lenses? And the learning is a bit what I really enjoy. I'm like, oh my days, I did not realize that people do that. Like the
Yeah.
immersion, the observation, the kind of, if I could do that every day, I would, because I really, really enjoy it. And it's yeah, of course, it's a fact of just being a nosy person and watching human interaction. I love that all the
Love
time.
it.
There's been times where I've gone to a coffee shop and just watched people
Yeah.
like in a
Yeah.
non-stalk way. Um,
Yeah.
but there's
Their walk
something around,
cycles, you know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. But there's something around that whole thing of the learning of and identifying the unknowns. I really, really enjoy. And you've mentioned
Yeah.
it a few times throughout the whole
Yeah.
kind of show, this whole research and this understanding and audience
Mm.
insight. Where does that come from you?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Um, yeah, I think there's a few things. I think just my hyper curiosity. I'm just like kind of just a walking kind of encyclopedia of useless facts. I love it, right? And I just love collecting these insights and just using them as stories to open people's minds to
Mm,
like the possibilities of looking at things a little differently. I think the other thing that's sitting there for me is actually the literature. If you go back and read about problem-based learning or any of these kind of domains, like if you go back to like 70s, 80s, their thinking was way more innovative than what's happening today.
yeah.
um, Half of what's happening today, I think in L&D, for example, is a half-cooked remodel of,
Mm,
so it's not an innovation, it's more just a bit of a remodel. We're just going to kind of take the exact same thing and kind of just move a couple of bits around. True innovation, real innovation is very, very rare. And in fact, it's probably quite, I feel, rare out in other sectors as well, right? There's a lot of remodeling going on because we can only sustain so much innovation at once, or we'll
mm,
catch fire and explode. But so that kind of that piece, I think, also comes back to, I feel kind of, you touched on it, sort of what you're comfortable with. I'm very comfortable getting a one sentence business brief, which half the time that's, if you get a 4-page business brief from someone, that's the only useful bit is the one line that's in it anyway, to be honest. And just building it from the ground up, just crafting that, and just being really disciplined about crafting what's emerging. So it's
mm,
like, okay, well, this is missing a whole bunch of like context and things to it. So this is my plan. I'm going to do some of this type of research. I'm going to do a bit of this and engage with that. I'm going to sense make at this point, perhaps, and then I'm going to
mm,
try and surface these things, and then I'm going to use that to then as a step to then go on to this next piece, which is going to be about, okay, if we look at it through those 4 lenses now, since we did that bottom research, what's that mean? And then, I just love that process of kind of forging those types of journeys. Half the time it's completely invisible.
mm,
um, I think the big challenge about being someone in that space is trying not to be 7 steps ahead of everyone, in the sense of not like intelligence or anything, but just in kind of terms of where you are. Like, you can see what this has potential to be, but everyone's still way back here somewhere, and you don't even realize they're not even on the bus yet.
yeah.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, you know,
Oh, Nick, it's like you've just seen into my soul. Um,
Yeah.
the feedback what I've constantly had in my career is, "You're here. These people are still over here. They don't." And you're like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
but I've already seen
Laggards.
I've already noticed. I already can kind of, there's
Yeah.
something around that."
Yeah. I hear
But
you, mate. It's our challenge. It's our challenge
mm,
because we are operating at that. That's our job, to operate at that level, to be out front as far as it can go, and to be a translator. And there's never going to be a solution to that problem.
no,
And I'm okay with that. Like you're telling me things from the future, but about 3 years in the future, you're telling me things as a designer, and I'm like, is that really going to be true? Like, I think like futures work and stuff at that stage of like, speculating on innovation and stuff
mm,
has more to do with science fiction than it
yeah,
does to do with, well, so it's kind of in that territory, I think, mate. And I think what comes with that is, you know, that ability to tell stories and communicate, which you're fantastic at, So be kind to yourself, mate. I'm sure you're better at it than you give yourself credit for.
mm,
Um,
uh, it's I think there's something around how do I put this? There's something around having a personal value now as well. One of the things
yeah,
which I started doing maybe a few years ago is actually if a client isn't prepared to do any form of insight research, I just say I'm not for you
yeah,
anymore, because I'm not.
it's
For me,
great.
that is a first indicator of actually, are you taking this serious, or
Yeah,
are you, to use Alyssa's term, solution seduction? Are you already in a place where you already know the answer, and this is an optics game. You
yeah,
actually don't necessarily care around it.
yeah.
And I put a post out on my newsletter yesterday. I was like, there's two types of insights. There's a mundane, and then
Hmm.
there's a magical.
Yeah.
And there are two insights, and often a lot of companies just want the mundane insights. And like I'm like,
Mm.
the value, the innovation, the opportunity spaces in the magical, and people don't want to sweat the insights. They don't want to do it enough.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
just like,
I think you touched on the real skill of design there, which is you've got about five clients, um, and on the one project, like so how do you tailor to meet everyone where there's at, like how much disequilibrium can that organization take before it breaks or before it
mm,
goes into active disengagement, that the true kind of systems territory. Yeah, it's a very interesting kind of domain to be kind of operating as being that person designing for other people and having that responsibility of like, I've just found, all of these insights. I'm only going to surface these 10%. I'm actually
mm,
going to hold behind the some of the really crazy stuff that's there. Like, I'm going to be disciplined about this because I've spent time with you as an organization. I can tell where you're at in terms of maturity. I'll throw all those other insights there as a bonus in the
yeah,
appendix. And by the way, here's a bunch of crazy ideas section. But in terms of delivering on what you've asked for, which is, can you please meet us where we're at plus 10%? I
mm,
feel is like the kind of the true challenge space. And we have quite a big team of artists and designers and stuff, so we need to make sure everyone's fed and employed. So
yeah,
I always use the reality of the job. It's a 80-20 rule. 20% of the time living the dream, working on true innovation, blah blah blah. 80% of the time we're keeping the economy going, so to speak.
yeah,
I'm trying to make it 30-70. I'm working pretty hard to switch those margins, but you know, um, there's another thing I think that happens though that I like to try and do, which is like what I call small scale innovation,
mm,
which is like, okay, what is the one thing we can innovate on this? Like, even if it's something small, like a really good example is client comes to you and goes, I want 5 20-minute modules. Yeah. Oh, sweet. All right. If you can change one of those modules to not be a module and to be rather some type of new device or artifact that finds its way into the environment that measures learning differently, you've done innovation work. You've done great work, at
mm,
that level. So I think innovation can be all shapes and sizes. Um, it's never what you think it'll be. I always had ideas about what innovation would be. So I got really into strategy, and I was like, yeah, and I've got all these strategies and could pull them out like action cards. None of them ever really fit the what I was doing. In fact, made things worse often. But it's about, I think, getting so into context in the problem space you're in. Innovation is just going to become not innovation, but perhaps just a better idea,
Mm,
if you know what I mean. I think
yeah. There's
innovation's kind of whatever the client sort of says it is, like whether they're using words or not, about like what they think innovation is. It's their environment, it's their problem space, it's their challenge, and so innovations are kind of a word I personally try to sort of take off the table at the start and kind of just yeah we're just going to do some stuff, and then it's like it starts to kind of buzz a little monster that sort of bubbles up in the center
yeah.
at a later point in time. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. So I kind of don't. I use innovation because I think I use innovation from an external lens. So if I
Yeah.
want people to find it, because I go, people who are searching for innovation want something. But the way I work behind closed doors with clients is often I'll run this really simple kind of activity. What I remember them are like, actually take innovation out. It's a dirty word.
Yeah.
Do you want evolution or revolution?
Nice. Yeah, I like
And
that.
then we'll come up with some, we'll bounce these ideas around or whatever else. I'm like, right, let's put these on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Is this more revolution? Is this more
Yeah.
evolution?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, and together, it gives you this visual thing of, oh, actually, no, what we're asking for is more
Yeah.
evolution, which kind of goes back to your point around the kind of the small scale.
Small scale.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think
Stealing
often,
that, by the way. I just
yeah,
wrote it down. Thanks.
take it, take
Yeah.
it. But there's something around that simple fact of just the optics, the visual of it going, actually, no, we don't want innovation. We just want evolution of this. And, you
Yeah.
know, 10% up there is enough for our kind of, our,
Mm.
I guess, risk, our appetite, our whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it. And what I
Yeah.
find often is having that conversation really early allows me to then talk better with um with the clients. And
Yeah.
there's something in the book, I've called it the dare canvas, design a relationship experience.
Mm-hmm.
And often I do it around about that same time
Yeah.
because there's something around, it gets everyone on the same page and we're all talking the same language right at the very start.
Oh, mate, it's genius.
It's
It's really
just,
clever. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I'm excited for the book, mate, because I actually need that that tool or method. But I think you're also doing something more masterful there as well. Which you didn't mention, which is like uh you're enabling the client to configure the level and the nature and the intentionality around um, what it is. Well, they're ordering, I guess, from you as in terms of like service and all that, but also the just what the level of innovation is, and you're doing it in a masterful way where you're co-authoring it or doing that, and I think that creates shared language, but also a shared like because the worst thing about innovation is like when it's just like this uncontrollable invisible beast that is just like a tap that's like, oh my
mm,
god, like you've kind of created a dojo for the innovation by configuring what level it's actually going to be at. Is it going to be on hard mode, or is it going to be on
mm,
kind of like are we just going kind of entry level mode here?
mm,
And I think a lot of people try to do that through toning down their design processes and things, but I don't think we should. Yeah, I think this calibration at the start is kind of the way to go. So I'm a big fan of that, mate. That's I'm gonna ponder on that deeper and
yeah,
implement in my
please
yeah.
do. Please do.
Yeah.
And I'm mindful of time, but it's kind of what, an hour and 10 in already. And like,
Yeah, sorry,
I
mate.
think this is the problem with our conversations that we always end up, we can go on for hours. And maybe there's a part two. Um, but I guess there's probably three kind of things I want to needle into in a more
Sure.
professional level in just a second. But before I do, I asked you a question, which
Oh, yeah.
was, have you done anything lately worth remembering? What
Yeah.
comes to mind?
Yeah. Two things. I'll pick the weirder one. Um, I was getting really into epistemology and ontology. And I was looking at the two spaces and really understanding them through a lens of learning and stuff. And so I went and surveyed a lot of people on learning through a ontological lens, through ontology. So just for the listeners, so epistemology being really focused around the limits kind of our knowledge and kind of what we know and really all of that sort of stuff. And then ontology is really the philosophy of belief. And I asked them this kind of really interesting question that is just blowing my own eyelids off. I asked them kind of like, what is learning and how has it changed your perspective of the world? So I was using ontological questions to get like really interesting kind of, insights out of people. And the general consensus I got back from a lot of people about what learning is was that it's the immaterial self. So there's you right now, right today, and everything you've learned in the past. That's you. That's who you are, right? Your immaterial self is you tomorrow. And so the function of learning is just this constant cycle of forming your immaterial self from who you are today to who you are tomorrow at the deepest of levels of learning. Nothing to do with training or education. I mean, okay, there's factors there because I love some training. To be honest, I'm a training junkie. I get right into training, even if it's like old school training. In fact, I think old school training's sometimes a lot better than what I've seen today because most of it's all put in modules these days. But but that was a really remarkable thing that has really got me thinking about what learning really means to people. And what that's done is it's kind of given me this whole new focus now where I'm really thinking about how we value and measure learning very differently. And I'm looking through lens of learning as a form of capital.
Okay.
And really the social, the cultural, the sector and the financial ROIs that can surround it. So I'll give you a very quick example here of let's go to the social kind of RO or the social kind of space, the social impact space. So we did a program recently where before this program, it was like for 35 capabilities, very, very big bank that's out there. And before this program existed that we built, if you were like a banker working for the bank all the way out in a far, far suburb, and you wanted to become a branch manager, you actually had to move to the city. So you actually had to sell get rid of your home, move your whole family, do all of that stuff. You had to literally live in the city if you wanted to become a branch manager. After this program is designed deployed, you no longer need to do that. You can do it from home, or it's the start of that journey of being able to do it from home. And so, if you think about learning's real role there, it's truly about creating, equality. So there's an equality-based outcome there for better human futures through learning, and then we're talking adult learning here, so we can get out of the whole education kind of equality sort of stuff and get into like the true workforce kind of impacts that we can have on the working world and on workforces. So that kind of something that I've a little journey I've been on over the last I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months or so. It started with asking questions about learning through an ontological lens. That got me an insight that deep down at a psychological therapy level almost, learning is the immaterial self. And then, therefore, the true impacts of learning and the lenses in which we look at it can drastically change for a better world. And this is part of the problem, I think, in L&D and stuff, where the lens of what learning is just it's tiny. It's a pinhole.
Yeah. And I think there's something around, is it just a case of the constraints of learning and development need to be redefined? The
Yeah.
space in which we operate, like you say, we're at this really small, tiny pinhole level, and there's something around, it's much richer, it's more complex, it's more nuanced, it's
It,
It's
it,
everything.
it it's. I don't think L&D can handle what learning really is.
True.
I just that's what it doesn't have the. Yeah, it's in the capabilities. It's in the capacity of what it currently does as a function.
Mm,
Not everywhere, not always true, but often, right? I think where learning really belongs is outside of the education and training context.
yeah,
Again, and right out there, like you're going to be out. Say if you're out of L&D industry, you're going to be out there doing innovation. You're going to be indirectly working with learning.
yeah.
It's in everything. It's such a vaporous, thing, right? But I think, yeah, that's I think the kind of question of the times, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can L&D handle learning?
It's
Because
it's fascinating. Again, this is like a good therapy session for me, Nick. Every time you say to me, I'm like, yep, you're just into my soul again.
yeah,
It's funny, a lot of the work which I'm doing right now, and this is one of my missions, right? Like,
mm,
it's a case of to upskill 10 different L&D functions to be the
cool.
teams of the future, the team the organization need as a problem solving team. And it is like I've worked more with more L&D teams recently than I have when I was in L&D.
Yeah,
And it's because,
it's
I'm working
interesting.
with clients who have got this expansive view of what actually the team should be able to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really great shout. And I guess the question I've got before I take us on to the next one is, how are you going to share that? How are you going to give that back to the community? Your thing, what worth remembering. Is it going to
Mm,
be something that you want to still ponder around on for a minute and let it mature a little
yeah.
bit more?
Yeah. Twofold. So I'm embedding my emerging practice into every client work that I'm on. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It doesn't matter what it is, what shape it comes in. We do try to have that authentic practice in there, and so over time of doing that, small measurable experiments. I'm hoping to build up that shift and to change things piece by piece around the world because we've got global clients. And then I think the other piece is I think when you take it really seriously, in a sense, I've been working for about 4.5 years on research. Some of what I've shared today has taken me about 4.5 years to figure out. So I'm publishing. I am creating methodologies, field guides, this type of stuff. But there's a level of responsibility that can come with some of that, and I want to do it right. So I kind of have to go and do a PhD or a master's in research to really kind of get to the level I want to get to. But what I guess in terms of it more of a timely thing, I am working through publishing a whole series of papers, including learning and educational capital and generative evaluation. I'm looking at border crossing and artifact design.
Mm,
So how we design artifacts so that people can cross borders as a mode of learning, really inside of organisations. I've got about 6 or 7 papers. A lot of my current focus has been in really trying to make an impact, and it's partly to do with work. Is taking on a focus of reskilling as a priority issue.
mm,
So the work we've been doing is completely changing the way in which we measure reskilling. So there's no complete or incomplete. Nothing to do with it. It's more so to do with the volume of completed job tasks in relation to a skill. For example, totally switching up the entire function and modality of learning and all the didactics that kind of go with that through a research informed perspective. Working on codifying how we actually establish and measure a skills deficit for an
mm,
organization. So an organization might have a, you know, 40% skills deficit at this point in time. And this is actually what's going to take to close that skills deficit. Um, and my real impact is always around, I feel, organizations who have capacity to learn create better futures. That's sort of kind of what I think. But I also think that we have an opportunity to create organizations that operate as prototypes for creating better worlds. It's kind of what I see organizations as. They're a prototype for a better or worse world, potentially, on the direction they're headed. And really, we're prototyping at a systems level,
mm.
which is pretty cool. I feel so. Yeah, there's a bit of stuff there, mate. I'm working on bit of a nerd, really.
No, this is awesome. This is awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I'd love to talk about border crossing a little bit more.
yeah.
But I
Okay.
want mindful of time, and I want to get us into kind of just this other question. But there's something around the border crossing, and
Yeah,
it's just a mental image what comes to mind. You know, I
yeah.
think we talk about illegal immigrants and them crossing the borders,
Uh-huh.
and this is just where my mind went. But there's something what is interesting around how them two worlds collide.
Yeah,
Both of them, one way or another, will hit a policy
yeah,
or they'll hit a process.
yeah,
And there's, and I guess, you know, when I think about
yeah,
the border crossing of illegal immigrants, like they hit policy, they hit countries say, no, we don't want you here, you know, go back. And then when I think about the border crossing of a person stepping outside their field and stepping into another field, there's
yeah.
this politics of there's something that people don't want to let go of the Lego. We go, this is my area. And how dare you come into my area?
My territory.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
there's something going on for me there, and just
yeah,
the imagery of how
yeah.
that
How we deal with
narrative
it.
is threaded. I don't know. It's just
So, a
yeah.
couple of things come to mind. So, the first one is borders don't exist.
Mm,
They're a
okay.
construct,
Yeah.
that we've made, and you know, um, decolonialization's getting pretty big over here in terms of a design sort of theme. How do we start to decolonialize the world from all of these unconscious things that we've designed into our policies, our systems, and so on. But you bring up a really important point, and I think the point is working at a level of policy and strategy. And I was
Mm,
actually touching on this the other day with someone, but fundamentally, a policy is really a set of principles and rules that everyone has to abide by in an organization. And a strategy is really a bunch of actions and behaviors, right, for
mm,
achieving an objective. And where I think a lot of people go wrong with designing this or approaching this type of stuff is they pretty much only go to strategy or they sort of just focus on strategy. What they don't realize though is the strategy is always informed by policy, because if it isn't, then the strategy is just going to conflict against the policy, which is exactly what you're talking about. So if we said we want everyone to learn, let's create a whole bunch of border crosses in our organization only for them to get over the border and just hit an operational or procedural process nightmare, right? So when we're designing this type of work, we need to start by looking at the policy, because if we want people to learn all the time, isn't it interesting that the policy says, or doesn't say, rather policies are about what they don't say, that you aren't allowed to go and pick and choose what you work on, who you work with, whenever you want. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because I don't see how this innovative world of learning could possibly function inside of your organism if that's not one of the rules. So I like to sort of start there and kind of work through it. Um, there's something else I think that's kind of important about the actual individual too, and also the collective, and it's embedded in the term of border crossing. Like border crossing is really it's a behavior, but it's also a bit of a mindset. It's like, hey, I'm gonna leave my forest and I'm gonna go into that jungle over there, and I'm gonna tell people what I'm doing here. I'm here to learn, and so I've come to investigate. I'm not a threat. I haven't come to take over anything. I want to see how you guys do your innovation stuff. You know, um, and I think that that's part of it. So you've got to be designing for the system, and then you've got to be designing for the actors in the system, and trying to remove as much of that friction and much of that, as you sort of can. It's big work. It's long work. It's not overnight work. That's for sure. Because even if you just designed a whole program or service and just dropped it in, boop, it's going to have some dysfunctions. So that's my kind of thinking there for your friend. And I think there's probably different brackets of border crosses. There's the relentless. They're like, I'm probably in that bracket. I'm like, they're like, no, you can't. And I'm like, oh, that's cute. And I sort of just keep going, right? Or I find another way, right? You've got people who are far more cautious.
mm,
So there's all sorts of spectrums. So how we design for everyone It's always an impossible question because you can't design for everyone. Yeah, so you need to kind of find a way to create change in an organization, and I usually leave the laggards behind.
Mm,
If you go to like the diffusion of innovation or the bell curve or something, and try to sort of design for for those people who are going to make a visible difference in the organization. So hoping that other people can follow.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's kind of
nice.
yeah, it's where I'm at with that one, man.
No, I like it. I like it. Um, okay, one more question, and I'm keen to get your take on this. So, um, all the gear, no idea is probably how I'm going to summarize this.
Okay.
Um, I've noticed. So let me tell you where this comes from. Again, it comes back to the idea of me writing a book, and I
Mm,
remember there was a conversation around why don't I create another book? So the book. So I've got culture crafter, experienced engineer, and the insightful innovator. The
hmm
first one's out now. The other two are still being written. But I was really interested in the fact of do I write a book where it's full and page of tools,
mm,
and it can constantly keep going around my mind of we don't need another tools book.
yeah,
Excuse me.
yeah.
We don't
There's a
need another
lot.
tools book. We don't need another methods book. Actually, what we need is we need a fundamental, basic understanding. Once you have these brilliant basics, the tools become something what can be enabled and twisted and tweaked.
Yeah,
But I think personally, I think we've seen
yeah,
this big shift towards toolbooks and these other things over here without having the basic understanding, which goes back to the conversation earlier on, which is around the generalist versus the depth
yeah,
and knowledge.
yeah,
And I guess yeah, what's been your take? Like, how do you view that? Like, are you more
yeah.
towards basic knowledge or more towards tools?
Oh no, I've done the tools thing. I like yeah to tool. I tooled myself to death. I tooled my own eyes out for sure. And I was like, oh, I've got this method. It's a now methods are great. Methods are bloody fantastic. Only when you really understand what you're doing with it.
Mm,
Because like I'll give you a really cool example. Like let's go a classic one, the empathy map. Right? You can also flip that tool and make it an expectation map.
mm,
So not only what are people thinking, feeling, saying, doing, for example, what do people want to think, feel, say, and do? No. And only if you get that level of understanding about what you're actually doing with these tools, can you really wield them.
mm,
Um, and so for me, actually, I'm more methodology. I'm more methodology because what I have learned is that the nice, pretty sequence of methods and tools and tactics and stuff. As soon as the gun fires and you start getting into complexity or something like that, nah. What's better than practice is praxis, which is the ability to really seek sense and respond as you're going through the problem space. So I write like research plans for like client sake and
mm.
project sake, scope sake, right? But in that, I'm constantly just moving some things around, you know. So for me, man, I like the vibe that you're on because I think people need a philosophical, a historical, a abstract understanding of the territory. I guess they're kind of entering
Mm.
before they can, pick up a tool and really understand what that tool actually means. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think your anthology of books, if that's what we could call it, I don't even know that's the correct use of the term anthology, but whatever. The Animatrix is cool. Um, I don't think it's going to make sense to you until you've written that third book. And
Mm.
then it'll go, oh, I see what I did
I
there.
got it all wrong.
No, there's no getting it wrong. It just is what it is. It's like ah, for you as a writer, perhaps it's like the implicit generative order. Like in order for you to get maybe to be the person delivering the most amount of value of that tool of book number two,
Mm.
you have to have gone through the lived experience of writing book number one.
Yeah.
And then you need time to reflect and go through that whole thing. And then you're going to go, yeah, okay, I know how to position these tools now and link it back and like really give it like prominence and so on and so forth. You got to go. It's not just about having it all in your head. I guess is what I'm trying to say. You actually had to write that book in order to then, when you get to that tools book, kind of, you've probably already started it. So, but book writing's torturous, mate. You're probably going to change the order of that tools book about 70 or 80 times. So
Yeah. Honestly, I learned so much just writing that book
yeah.
to a point where it's like, wow, this is. I got a newfound respect for people writing books. It
Oh,
was, yeah.
mate. It's the true. I'll see if I can frame this right without ruining it. Um, when your head's full, you write. When your head's empty, you read. And
Mm,
it's just this process of reading and writing is just the most powerful thing we can still do. Thinking and reflexivity and stuff in between, of course, but reading, writing, that process, reading, writing is the way to get learned, if you know what I mean.
mm,
And it's the how to best way to expand your world, because the more high quality, and the good stuff is, I had a professor, she's just amazing, and she got us she got us on the slow food, not the fast food. So
okay.
there's fast food out there, which is design thinking's fast food. It's like, here's a tool, here's a method. Like, you can innovate, you can change anything. Look at all these amazing case studies about changing children's lives and blah, 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 blah. It's all marketing. Giving people slow food, like rethinking the way in which um, we think about design, or rethinking what policy really is, or whatever. These types of slow foods, these really good single papers about people who really thought about stuff, sticks with you and changes your view of the world over time. And I think hopefully when your book comes out, mate, it's up there with that. It's like a piece of reading I can kind of ingest that I can then just take around with me, like the book being the garden in your pocket quote from
Mm,
earlier. And then it's just something that sort of sticks with you, mate. And I think that's the territory to kind of,
yeah,
yeah, start in at least. Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. Okay.
Yeah. You got
So,
to cut me off, mate.
no, no, this is good. I know for a fact we've got another 2 hours in us for sure.
Yeah.
I guess two questions. The
Yeah.
first question is, as you of all people know, Nick, we never really grow up. We never stop
Mhm.
developing and learning. And if I was to ask you right now, Nick, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would you say right now?
Yeah. So an archaeologist still.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to collect important, rare things, and I want the rest of the world to kind of enjoy them, or to kind of thrive from them, perhaps. Yeah, yeah,
nice,
yeah.
nice. Where can my listeners follow you, connect with you, Nick? Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, I am terrible at that bit. But I am always on LinkedIn, and always I'm meeting people around the world weekly. So people can, if people really want to kind of come to my space, the best thing to do is actually ping me on LinkedIn, and just say hello. Let's connect on Zoom, and just connect as human beings. But in the future coming up, I will be doing quite a lot of publishing some of my own research, some original research there. So yeah, definitely keep your eyes out, both in the sort of white paper front and peer reviewed sort of space. But I'll also then kind of bring it to where the industry is at with some, I don't know, some memes on on LinkedIn. No, it's a more like field guide type stuff that people can pick up and sort of practice with. Um,
Nice.
but as you would know, Danny, that takes a long time to get that sort of work to a point
Mm,
where you're ready to kind of let it out the door. So, yeah, little ways to go.
nice. Nick, always a pleasure. Never ever a chore.
Ditto.
Thank you for coming on.
Mate, thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure.
All
See you
right.
later,
Take it
listeners.
easy. Bye bye.